First of all, thank you everyone for joining us tonight. This is the 7EDU webinar on the do's and don'ts of the college application essay. If you are getting ready to do all your college prep, it's a good time to start thinking about that essay, and summer is a great time to get that essay written. There's a lot of really great information that you're going to hear tonight. So, okay, here's our agenda. We'll spend a few minutes on the introductions. I will introduce you to our panelists tonight. We will go over the do's and don'ts of the college application essay for a good 35-40 minutes. And then the last little bit, we will take your questions. So please, the best way to do that is to type your questions in the Q&A feed rather than the chat box. We will look at the chat box, but if you do your questions in the Q&A, we will see them for sure. Tonight, you're going to hear from Amy, Miss Amy, and Mr. Clint. Miss Amy is one of our senior counselors. She has a Bachelor of Arts degree from UCLA, a Master of Humanities from the University of Chicago, and she also studied law at Duke University. Mr. Clint is also one of our counselors. He holds a Bachelor of Philosophy degree from Harvard University. He is an internationally published playwright, poet, and philosopher. And he was also awarded Harvard's Artist Development Fellowship in 2009 and was one of only 100 students selected for the Harvard Business Leadership Program in 2010. So with that, I will hand it over to Miss Amy and take it away.
All right, thank you so much for that introduction, Laura. So let me start the slideshow here. So as we all know, one significant part of the college application is what we call the college application essay, or as it's more commonly known, a personal statement. So the first thing we wanted to go through is what a personal statement is not. So it's not an academic paper in the sense that the tone of the paper is not meant to be academic, overly formal, using a lot of technical language. It's also not meant to be a second version of your resume or CV, and we'll go over this in a bit more detail later. It's also not a journal entry, meaning that it shouldn't be so informal or casual that it feels as if you're reading someone's diary of the day. Last but not least, is not a plea. You should not be begging the college to admit you. That is never going to translate well within your personal statement. So then what is a personal statement? Well, just in short, it should be a summation of who you are as a person. And when we mean as a person, we mean more like what a person's values, priorities, beliefs are, is an invitation for the admissions officer to get to know you on a more personal level, because it's one of the few items on the application that's able to. So Clint, I'm going to turn this over to you if you want to add anything on a personal statement.
The one thing that I emphasize to all of my students is to think about your goals, some big picture goals and even some short-term goals. Thinking about developing competitive goals is the best way to make yourself stand out in the whole process. And also your goals will help you find your own path through the college experience. So I think sitting down and just thinking about what are your goals is really important for this process.
Right, exactly. And as counselors, we always help our students develop a type of profile, because the last thing you want to appear on a personal statement is aimless, right? Like you don't have a sense of direction as where you want to, what you want to use your college degree for, or what your future is. So here I wanted to share an article from Inside Higher Education. The point of this isn't to tell everyone that there's grade inflation, but it is to demonstrate how there are elements on the application that are, shall we say, under fire or suspect. Like recently, the ACT testing company has claimed that GPAs in the recent years have been inflated. Now, of course, the ACT testing board has a vested interest to state this, right? Because they're trying to push for the standardized test as a more accurate measurement. But even though grade inflation may or may not be an issue, standardized tests may or may not be, the most accurate gauge of a student's academic excellence, there has never been a point where anyone has stated we should eliminate the college essays entirely. Right? I don't think there will ever come a time in which the application will eliminate the college essay. So to say that it is a crucial component of your application as your GPA, standardized test scores, extracurricular activities are. So here I have a list of the common application prompts. The common application is should we say it's kind of like a collection or a more general application that a lot of colleges use, including the top ones like Harvard, Yale, etc. So if you take a look through it, you can get an idea of what kind of prompts that students are asked to answer. Clint, would you like to speak on this slide a bit more?
Yes, one bit of advice that I would have would be before you even start looking at the prompts, to start thinking about some stories about yourself that you think are memorable. Try to make a list of maybe 3 or 4 stories that really say something about you. And once you have an idea for the stories that you want to tell, then look through the prompts and see which ones are the best filters for those stories.
Right, exactly. I think it's completely fair that students brainstorm all the prompts so that they have a better idea which one is the most fitting for them. And if you look through what the application emphasizes, you'll notice there's no prompt that asks like, why did you receive this A in the class, right? Or, tell us explicitly about XYZ. It's more asking the student to reflect on, as you mentioned, moments in their life that motivated them, that, as you see in 5, spark personal growth, genuine areas of enjoyment / passion, etc. So it's very much trying to build a more personalized profile. So this is, I think, the 7 EDU results from 2022. All this to say that even though we are all aware that the admissions process has become more competitive in recent years, we've been very skilled and able to still help students reach their dream school. So I'm sure that's why we're all here too, because we want to see how we can help the current applicants reach their dream school as well through college application essays. So now we're going to go through some do's and don'ts. They're very general. It's not like 100% comprehensive, but it will give you some general pointers on what to do and what to avoid. So the first one is don't overgeneralize. The admissions board does not need an applicant's life story. So what we mean by this is your essay should not be an entire summation of your entire life from age 5 to age 18, right? Nobody wants to read an essay where it goes, at age 5, I discovered Legos. At age 7, I realized in building Legos, I actually like creating things. Then at age 9, it's too general. It's not focused. And college essays all have a limited word count. You will not be able to give your entire life biography. In fact, if an essay like the one I included here is overly general, it gives the impression that the student or the applicant doesn't know where their priorities are. They don't know how to focus. And also don't use emojis. So what you want to do is to tell a focused anecdote and have a personal story. And Clint and I can share some from our own experience. But first, I'm going to turn it over to Clint to talk a bit more about this slide.
Sometimes students have a hard time deciding on what to focus on. And one tip that I usually give my students is a tip from screenwriting. So producers have a test that they use on all scripts, no matter the genre of film or the country. The main test that they use to see if it's a good script is if the main character experiences some sort of change between the beginning of the script and the end of the script. And you'll find that many of your favorite movies will feature a character that experiences some sort of change or some sort of transformation. So I think that a really helpful starting point for students is to start to think about points of transformation in their own lives and how these points of transformation have affected their goals or their passions.
Yeah, I think that's very accurate. And I think maybe some people in the audience are wondering, why screenwriting? Isn't this about college application essays? And yes, it is. But the entire point of a college application essay is to filter your story in some sort of consumable narrative. Right?
Yeah, your goal is to just tell a memorable story that will stick out in someone's mind and help them see something important about you. So I think that these little tricks from screenwriting can help students give a little bit more punch to their stories.
In a college application essay, you're the main character, right? And one reason why a lot of students sometimes choose to focus on moments of adversity or challenges in their life is because, as I'm sure we all know, they are the points of most major growth slash personal change. Now, one thing I do want to mention is that in order to have a personal story, the college essay needs to come from somewhere, right? Because we're not making things up. This isn't a fictional story, is what I would call more creative nonfiction, right? A personal narrative. So that does mean that you cannot expect a college essay to make you into someone you are not. Because sometimes I've heard students say, I'm not worried about my 4 years of high school. On my college application, I'm just going to do really great on the essays. And that is going to miraculously gain me a ticket into the college of my dreams. But essays are always focused on, as Clint mentioned, events in a student's life. So if a student has not lived through those events, if they have not challenged themselves, if they have not pushed themselves, then there will be no substance for their essay. So all that to say that is an important component of the college application process, but you still want a strong profile that's built up through all 4 years. Okay, I think I'm going to move on to the next slide for this one. So have a focused story. They don't need your entire biography, but you should be able to filter your life experiences in a way that tells a compelling narrative about you. Okay, next one is don't dwell on the negative. So I did mention that a lot of students like to write on points of challenge or personal adversity, which is fine, but the way you choose to communicate these points are also very important. So I have a picture here of an animal from, I think it's Winnie the Pooh. He's Eeyore the donkey, and he's essentially the very pessimistic donkey who is very sad all the time. And it's cute when it's a stuffed animal on a children's cartoon. It is not adorable when it's your college application essay, because at best, you come off as, woe is me, right? Like a negative Nancy. And at worst, you come off as whiny. And nobody wants to admit someone who seems like a chronic complainer. So when you are writing on challenges, don't accentuate, how negative it is, or, focus 3 paragraphs on, personal suffering. Instead, I think, as we mentioned before, you want to focus on the positives and personal growth. Clint, would you agree with this?
Yes, exactly. I think the personal growth aspect is very important. If you're going to mention negative points, show how that they transformed you, or how they have influenced your current actions, or how you, somehow grew as a result of those.
Yeah, exactly. Because if you even go back to the prompts, you'll notice that a lot of them even use the words such as personal growth and realization. So no one, if you focus too much on the negative, it may come off too much as if you're fishing for sympathy. And no college is going to admit a person based on pity, right? So the point of it is to have the challenge / adversity be a single point within the essay. And the focus on the essay is on, as Clint mentioned before, your personal transformation, how you grew from that, what you gained from that, the learning process. Okay, so another thing, and this is in response to a very popular prompt, is the prompt that asks you to talk about a person who inspired you. And sometimes students will choose to write on their parents. They may choose to write on a teacher. They may just choose to write on a mentor in their life. And the primary pitfall that students want to avoid here is to place too much emphasis on the other person, so much that the essay is overwhelmingly about the supporting person. Because sometimes once I read a student's essay, it was on their mother. It was very, very touching. It was about, how they had a single mother and their mother worked very hard to support him, etc. But the issue of the first draft of the essay was that it was focused so much on their mother and how great their mother are. My first comment was, well, now I want to admit your mother to this college, right? Because she sounds wonderful, but I don't know that much about you. And you don't want that to happen within your application essay. So I have here some definitions of what a supporting character is. I'm not going to go over them in detail, but as Clint mentioned before, college application essays are a bit like screenwriting, right? So you want to make sure that in your essay, you're the main character. Whoever it is that inspires you, they are a supporting character. They are not the person undergoing growth or personal change. You are as a central character. I'm going to avoid any movie references because I'm not sure what the audience would be aware of. But again, if you think of movies that you may enjoy or even novels, right, there's a clear difference between someone who is the main character, who is growing, who is active in the story, and someone who is the supporting character and the mentor. So you always want to make sure that you, or the applicant, I should say, the applicant always wants to make sure that the applicant is the focus of their application essay. It's not to say that you can never mention other people in your essay. I've had successful students who wrote about, how influenced they were by their grandmother or by other people in their life. But it was always done in a way that it was very clear that the other person's influence was supporting. And the majority of the essay was still focused on the applicant's personal growth, what they learned, what they assimilated, and how they became a different person as a result of the other person's influence. So a lot of students like writing on this prompts, but from our years of experience, we've both noticed a pitfall that students can, fall into. And I think it's very sweet how some students are so admiring of people in their lives. But again, for an application essay, the focus should be the applicant. All right, another one. Don't overshare or engage in controversial topics. So one is, the first one, I think the latter part is simple, right? Don't write on controversial topics that might offend your reader. I think we should all be aware of what those are. Even if an applicant feels like, oh, it's not controversial, your essay should still not be a one-sided lecture trying to convince your reader of, I don't know, a specific stance on a topic, because it's not a persuasive essay. You do not want to come off as preachy, and no admissions officer reader wants to feel like they're being lectured by a high schooler. It is not going to come off the right way. Another thing is, apart from things like hot button religious or political issues, when a student is sharing details from their life, they also do not want to be graphic or too revealing in how they share the details. You want to share it in a way that is, I don't think classy is the right term, but it is in a way that way, right? It's more discretion, be discreet. If like, for instance, I think I had a student who wrote on recovering from personal injury. The admissions board does not need to know every single graphic, explicit detail about the extent of the injury. That is not going to add to your essay. So you want to be very discerning and reserved in how you describe, parts from your life, as well as what topics you choose to focus on. Clint, did you want to add to this slide?
I would just say you definitely want to be remembered, and you just don't want to be remembered the wrong way. You want to choose the way that you're going to be remembered.
Yeah. Some people will say that all publicity is good publicity, but in college application essays, no. Yeah, exactly. You don't want to be remembered for the wrong things. And I think this kind of segues very well into our next point, which is, don't just jump on a bandwagon. If you want to write on popular movements or circumstances, make sure that they have a personal tie or connection to you. So for instance, there are certain political movements that are very popular. Well, actually, before I even talk about that, we can just mention the COVID pandemic. I know people who are, admissions readers, and they have told me, I never want to read a COVID essay, because it's something that is so universal and it's affected everyone. It is very difficult for an applicant to distinguish themselves, right? Nobody wants to read 50 essays about how tough online classes were, even if they genuinely were. It's just become so commonplace that it is very much not the best topic of choice. Another thing is, I think I mentioned previously, talking about popular movements. So in the previous years, some popular movements have included things like BLM, Black Lives Matter, or Stop Asian Hate. And sometimes I have noticed students name drop these movements even if they're not personally involved with the movements, because they feel a certain college may react positively to it. For instance, Berkeley, right? Berkeley has it has the impression of being very politically active, etc. But you do not want to name drop movements in your college application essay if you don't have anything substantial to say about it, and you don't have any personal tie to it, as in you don't actually really care. It becomes very obvious, and it's a turnoff for whoever is reading the essay. So again, don't jump on a bandwagon, right? Don't think, okay, this is a issue that a lot of people seem to care about and are passionate about. If you're not personally passionate about it, or I should say if the applicant is not personally passionate about it, they're still not going to be able to write a very compelling essay about it. So instead, you want to be a leader, not a follower. I think Clint has mentioned a lot about students needing to self-reflect and think about personal moments in their lives, or what their values are, what they actually care about. You want to make sure that the essay is individualized to the applicant. And I included here, this is the COVID-19 prompt from the Common Application. So there is 100% no reason that an applicant should write about the pandemic within their other essays, since they included a part for the students to mention it specifically if they needed to. Clint, would you like to add anything from your experience?
Yeah, I would just emphasize the personal connection is key. So if you were going to write about one of those topics like we were discussing a moment ago, you would also have to prepare to write, at least a paragraph where you could give a clear personal connection and make sure that the reader understands why this is very important to you. So make sure that you plan for that if you were going to go in that direction.
Yeah, exactly. And I think if you're going to write on those movements, you want to be very discerning. Because I remember I was helping a student with one of her essays, and she wanted to write on Stop Asian Hate, because she had done some, I think she was involved with some of it, but she wanted to use it as an example of her personal courage and valor. And I told her, this is fine, but if you think about it, how does this demonstrate courage? Because most people would agree that it's a good thing to do. And I said, if you want to demonstrate something courageous, I think courage is going against the flow, right? Is standing up for something you believe in, even if it comes at personal cost. And so we reflected on that a bit, and we decided to change it. So if you're going to use popular movements as evidence or substance within your essay, you want to make sure that they are, one, as we mentioned before, you have a personal tie to them, you have a personal connection to them, and that they actually are the best choice for whatever it is you're trying to demonstrate. Like, I'm a courageous person, or, I'm a very, I very much care about my community. Because maybe if you dig deeper, you can find even better or more fitting examples. Okay, moving on. Here's another thing. I think this one is very much, I'm going to turn it over to Clint first, because I know he has a lot of experience in, constructing stories. So Clint, I'll bring it over to you.
Okay. Well, we've all seen these kinds of charts for stories. And I just want you to start thinking about your own life and thinking about stories that can kind of fit into this format. One other way that you can think a format that would help to tell your own story. One way of analyzing popular stories is the goal, lie, truth story. So an example of this would be the hero starts out on a journey with a goal, and they are undertaking this journey on wrong assumptions or on a false perspective. That would be the lie. And then they experience a transformation moment and they find a new perspective, or the truth. And that's the full story of the hero's journey in that type of analysis. So you can start thinking about your own life. What kind of mental journeys have you taken, and what are some perspectives that you held, and then some new perspectives that you gained through the journey?
Yeah, I think that's very true. And Attendees may be wondering, a hero, why are you talking about a hero? Everyone's the hero of their college essay. You're the main character, you're the hero. Now, that doesn't mean you should say, like, I have superpowers, I'm infallible, right? But if you think about heroes that people like, heroes that are popular, that people like, have flaws, right? They're relatable, they struggle. There should be parts in their story where not everything goes right. Same thing with a college essay. You're the hero of your college essay, but you also want it to be, what's the term? A believable hero, right? A relatable hero. So you want to take your readers through the struggles or whatever learning process you have within the heroism. Here is another one. So this is another one of those character arc charts, because one thing that Clint and I both emphasize are things like personal transformation growth, right? That's a lot of what I think a decent college essay or a good college essay will emphasize, that the applicant was a different person at the end of the essay than they were in the beginning. So if you notice the character arc example, the protagonist starts off one way. Protagonist encounters challenge. It doesn't even have to be a challenge. It could be like a person. It could be some sort of, event. It could be whatever. But number 3 is the most important part, which is the protagonist undergoes realizations. There has to be some sort of thought process. There has to be some sort of process before they can end up at point 4, which is they end up transformed. Because sometimes I'm sure Clint has the same experience, when you're working with students, because they've already lived the story and they've already come to the conclusion, they like to say things like, okay, this happened, and then now I'm so much more XYZ, right? But in an essay itself, you need to take your reader through the process, right? Where did you come to the realization? What did you learn? How exactly did you grow in order for it to be believable? Clint, do you want to add to this slide?
And just remember that whatever story that you're telling, as you show them how you navigated that journey, you're also showing them how you're going to navigate the journey of college, because there's going to be a lot of new things at college and a new lifestyle. You're going to be living in a way that you didn't live before, with different social systems and different motivation structures. So you want to show some prior experiences that might not be related to that, but that might show how you would adapt to changing circumstances like that.
Right, exactly, to show that you have the maturity and all the skills required to succeed in college. Okay, so next one is the importance of the hook. Don't have a boring, mundane conclusion. So all the essays I've shown are excerpts from essays, are all public domain. If you wanted to, you could find them online. We don't share the private essays of our students. So if you took the time to read through this excerpt, this person is waxing poetic about how their mother's side of the family attended U Michigan. They're all legacy U Michigan. And then he or she went to visit U Michigan. It's boring. Right? There is nothing that really captures the reader's attention. And also, your essay should not be highlighting how your legacy for an entire paragraph. There's a checkbox where you can check for legacy. That's all you need. So this is not something that is attention grabbing. This is not something that is going to remain positively in the admissions officer's mind. This is not what you want to do. I have here a much better example. So remember, first impressions matter. Have an interesting hook that captures the reader's attention. So this excerpt is from an essay very recently. I think it was just this year, actually. It's from a young lady who applied to Harvard, and she was admitted. And after she was admitted, she shared, I believe, excerpts of her essay on TikTok. So if you are very interested in this, you can go find her reading her essay out loud on TikTok. And I think other news articles covered it as well. But this is an example of a very catchy hook. It starts out with, I hate the letter S, right? Short to the point. And the immediate question for the reader is, well, why does she hate the letter S? And then if you go read through the intro, I think there's a very clever use of statistics and numbers. And with of course, the closer at the end, which is, I used to have 2 parents, but now I have 1, and the S in parents isn't going anywhere. Now, it's usually a rule of thumb where I will tell students, don't write about personal death and tragedy in your life. because sometimes it's very difficult to write that in not the correct way, but in a way that demonstrates personal growth, etc. But if you look through the entirety of this essay, this applicant was very good in how she used the letter S throughout the essay, not just in the beginning, and also how she very maturely and I think cleverly dealt with this tragedy in her life. So yeah, have a good hook, have a good introduction that grabs the reader's attention. Did you want to add to this, Clint?
I would just say, the hook will show a lot about your own personality. So think to yourself about, what do you value in your own personality? What things would you like to put a focus on in your opening, and use that as a way to organize your thoughts.
Exactly. And again, if you guys want to go look at this essay, I read through parts of this essay. I very much like it, not only for the writing itself and how clever it uses this motif of the letter S, but earlier we were talking about how when you're talking about negatives in your life, you want to focus on the positive and positive change. And this applicant very clearly did it throughout her essay as well, because in the end, I think the closing of it was more like, now the S has changed into the S from passion, because now I have my own personal passion. So it was a very lovely essay overall, but also a really great example of a opening hook. Here's another one that I feel applicants that I work with tend to fall under, which is, don't make your essay resume 2.0. You have an activity list for a reason. In your essay, you should not be listing, like, I won X AMC award. I got 1580 on the SAT. It should not just be one by one. Oh, this is what I accomplished. Because one, they have that information. And two, it may surprise you, but it actually doesn't say much about you as a person other than, okay, maybe this person is smart and hardworking. And that's not enough. If you're applying to top universities, almost all applicants are smart and hardworking. So how are you going to distinguish yourself? You have to talk about other things that you value, other things in your life that make the applicant who they are. So as you can tell, this is clearly a very smart applicant, but this is an awful essay because all they talk about are the classes they take. And I have no idea who this person is other than they took these classes, which is a very superficial way of knowing a person. If I were an admissions reader, I would have gotten all this information from their transcript and their activity list. So the essay did not add anything to their application. And it is pretty much a waste of an essay in a way. Now, here's an interesting example. You want to write your essay in a way that the college can see your unique voice, right? So this was an essay from a person who applied to Yale and was admitted. And the essay prompt is one that's actually, you can find across various colleges, is write about something that you love to do. This person wrote about how much they love ordering Papa John's pizza, which is a bit risky, I will admit. It could definitely have not worked as an essay. But if you read through the essay itself, I guess it's also kind of, I think, Clint, maybe you can talk a bit more about this. It's like the concept of show, not tell. Would you agree?
Yeah, and showing more of a stylistic taste.
Mm-hmm. Because this person didn't say, hey, I'm smart, like I took 5 APs, right? Instead, when you read the line, when the delivery person rings my bell, I instantly morph into one of Pavlov's dog, salivating to this. I think, wow, okay, so they know Pavlovian response. And they used it in a way that's very clever and also funny, right? So I'm like, okay, this person's smart. They have a sense of humor. And they're also grounded. It doesn't seem like they take themselves too seriously because they're writing about the comfort of Papa John's pizza, which right, is very interesting. And the writing itself stylistically is very unique. So I'm not saying that now everyone should write on how they like ordering, I don't know, Papa John's pizza or Domino's pizza or In-N-Out. I am saying that you don't want to tell the admissions board all your accomplishments. You want to demonstrate other interesting features of yourself. Maybe the fact that you have a sense of humor or that you really like pizza, etc.
And this essay is a good example too, because some students think that their passions are too common and they're worried to talk about their passions because they think it's just like everybody else. And the lesson from this essay is, everybody's passion is unique. And if you can think of a unique way to show why it's important specifically to you, then it makes you stand out, even if it might be something as common as Papa John's pizza.
Right, exactly. And I think the way they write about it is very clever, because it's not just, okay, well, yes, clearly they're very Epicurean, they love food. But in the end, they end it with, I always love ordering pizza because of the way 8 slices of something so ordinary are able to evoke feelings of independence, consolation, and joy. That's clever, right? They talk about how Papa John's pizza is like self-sufficiency. So this is, in my opinion, this is a very clever essay. And I think it's also funny. And it is miles above the one where the person just talked about, how I took this AP, I can't remember anymore. I think how I took a biotech course. That really does not demonstrate anything about the student at all. Okay, so oftentimes for students, it's very difficult for them to perhaps profile themselves. And I found in working with students, it's really helpful for them to have an experienced second person who can help them, make more sense of the details of their lives and filter out and help them prioritize how to write a college essay. Clint, would you agree with that based on your experience?
Yes, I think it's very helpful.
Yeah, definitely. And it's not to say that I think both Clint and I have worked with very smart, high achieving students. But sometimes it takes a second eye to just review their stories or even their accomplishments and to make sense of it. Because sometimes I'll talk to students and they'll tell me a story and then I'll listen to it and then I'll offer some feedback. And then the student will say, wow, I never even thought of it that way, right? I didn't think that this experience was XYZ. So I think it's very helpful sometimes within the application process to get people who are knowledgeable and experienced to take a look at that and to help them really just structure and prioritize and figure out what kind of person they want to present themselves as within the essays themselves. So I think for now, we can open it up to Q&A.
How much time do you think a student should count on spending when they are writing their essay for their college application?
That's an excellent question, Laura. I think for our current students, we're actually going to have them start writing essays in June. Because the point, I think one thing I didn't go over in the presentation is writing the essay is only 5% of the process, writing that first draft. 95% of it is editing and revision. And anyone who's done any writing will be able to, I think agree with that. So I think the essays take a significant amount of time. You definitely do not want to procrastinate your college essays, especially since they are such a significant component of your application itself. So I would say students should aim to start this summer and draft all the way to their EA/RD deadlines. I will also say from personal experience, the students I've had that edited their essays the most, that were very focused on their essays, that were incredibly diligent in revising them, also ended up receiving the best results for their college admissions themselves. Clint, did you want to respond to this as well?
I would say also it's good to go ahead and start on other essays, not just the Common App, because some students will find as they do the other essays, they'll find information that they forgot about that they might want to add back into the Common App or other perspectives that they discover. So I wouldn't just start with your first deadline, but I would start planning several essays at the very beginning.
Yes, that's correct. Okay, so I think I have quite a few questions here. One is, what is 7EDU's process of guiding the student in essay writing? So both Clint and I are counselors, but we're also essay specialists. So we've both worked with numerous students, specifically on the essay part of the application. And for us, we start brainstorming and drafting the essays in June. not all of them, but usually the Common App and maybe the EA and ED schools. And also perhaps maybe the UC prompts. And we continue the drafting. We finish the majority of the drafts by August. And then August and December is dedicated to meticulous editing and review, because those essays should be perfect. Someone asked, but aren't the prompts not out until August? For some of the private schools, yes. But the Common Application has not changed the prompts in, I don't know how many years, Clint, but they have not changed those prompts. And I do not think the UC is going to change those prompts either. So June is a great time to start brainstorming and to start drafting. Let's see, what's next? Do we offer an essay workshop this summer? Yes, we do. We will include more information later on in the slide. So please do, I believe it's a QR code. So, and do reach out for more information. Could I redisplay the first 2 points of don'ts? Oh, sorry, I skipped the first one. What would you recommend most for the conclusion of an essay? Hard to say without the specific essay. Right, because I can't say that there's a fix-all for every single essay. Each essay is unique. You want to have an essay that's most fitting for the conclusion of your essay. And I think Clint would agree, isn't that right, Clint?
Yeah, that's right.
I've done some tutoring of the college application essay, and if there's a way to do a twist or a surprise ending, sometimes that, or something unexpected, sometimes that's, if that's what they're asking, what would you recommend most for the conclusion? That's just one thing I would throw out there.
Yeah, definitely. I think you can, some people like to end up in epiphany, but again, it really depends on the individual essay. Please don't think that there's a trial, like, you know, one shoe does not fit every single foot. I'm not sure that's a good metaphor.
The other route would be tying back to your hook.
Yeah.
Some students, you've made a clever point or an interesting point in your hook, so then in your conclusion you try to build on that.
Yeah, I'm a fan of tying back, but I have also noticed that sometimes it doesn't always work. So, but yeah, there are definitely tricks of the trade, but your essay should be individualized to you. So it's what's best for your essay and what point you want to leave your reader with. Do we offer essay only service? I think that you could join the college application essays workshop. I think that could be what you are looking for, because that class focuses exclusively on the college essays, and they do offer a package deal with some one-on-one courses. But mostly we offer a college application service where we help take care of not only the essay, but things like the activity list, the other components of the application, helping to draft emails, and also the interview process. Because yes, the essay is important, but we do want to highlight that every portion of the application needs to be perfect, right? Including your activity list, your etc. If I apply for different schools, do I need to have different school stories for each school? Well, usually your different schools will have different prompts. So depending on the prompts, you may have to. That doesn't mean that you can't reuse an essay for a school if it fits, right? If you apply to, I don't know, Duke, and you use the same essay for Duke to Johns Hopkins, they're not going to talk to each other and be like, how dare this applicant? That's not going to happen. But you do want to make sure that your essay answers the prompt and also fits the culture of the school, what their values are. How about the supplementals? Do they change often each year? Sometimes I have seen supplementals change, but how should I put this? Because when we were going through the presentation, Clint and I both mentioned how you want to brainstorm various moments in your life and to craft a compelling story that shows personal growth. Even if the prompts change, that common core value does not change, right? I have seen, for instance, Columbia, I believe, changed one of their prompts last year, but it was not changed so significantly that the brainstorming we did in summer about, how do we structure a compelling narrative, right? What are the things we want to prioritize in your essays were completely not applicable for that. Will the workshop help edit? The group class does not help edit. I think there is a one-on-one component where they will review the essay, but if you want essay editing and detailed essay editing, you should sign up for the application service. Other than the essay, do you help on all other Q&A write-up in the application? Yes, we do. If you are a part of our application service, we help with everything, not just the essay, all Q&A, like I said, like interviews, etc. Could I redisplay the first 2 points of don'ts here? Let me scroll back. I think it was don't overgeneralize and don't dwell on the negative.
So this is for our summer course, college application essay essentials.
Another person says, since kids might change their mind during the first semester of senior year, will you help the kids continuously till they submit all their applications? Change their mind about what? About the schools that they're applying to? I think I would have to know more information about what they're changing their mind on. Because even if they change their mind, they most likely still need to write the Common App essay. That doesn't change. So yes, we're still helping them. Do you also help with letters about the schools or their major? The schools, I think, is up to discussion. Look, the major, I have had students before that were very strategic with their majors, in which case they would apply for different majors to different schools, and we're always able to accommodate that. So yes, we do help the students through the entire process of the application. Do we also help with letters of continued interest? Yes, we do. We help them draft. We help edit.
Great. This next QR code, so if you'd like to keep up with free classes, free webinars, education trends, college admissions trends, anything like that, that we put a lot of information in our newsletter. So it comes about twice a month, every 10 days or so. This QR code will send you to the form to sign up for a newsletter if you're not getting that already.